Welcome to the First Issue Club. We're your weekly comic book podcast that talks almost exclusively first issue comics. This week, we got a hullabaloo. We've got a jamboree of first issues. That's what you call a cluster of first issues. It's like a murder of crows. A whole jamboree of comics.
We had a jamboree of firsts.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not even going to get into the titles. You'll find them out as we get to them.
You just wait.
You just wait.
We'll leave breadcrumbs throughout the entire episode of what we're covering.
Who's in the club today? I'm Mike D.
I'm Greg.
I'm Budget King.
Great. We're here.
We're all here.
What's on the agenda today, fellas?
First issues.
Well, yeah.
And news. Comic book news in general.
Thanks for helping him along.
Yeah. You're very welcome. Sometimes we need breadcrumbs.
You got something that you're sitting on, a little article or something.
Oh, okay. So it's the 10th anniversary of Skybound.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is the image imprint.
Yes. The image imprint of which I think they try to put like their fire shit on.
Well, I think it's exclusively Robert Kirkman spearheaded books.
Yeah.
So there are Skybound books that he's not in. Is he just like editing those?
I think he's like executive producer, if you will.
What's the comic equivalent? He's like creative director on those books?
Essentially, yeah.
My understanding is that he looks over the shoulder of the person writing.
He micromanages.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He goes, ooh, would you really want to write that
I don't
right
know.
there? I don't know.
Yeah. And they're going to do Skybound X, which is going to be a weekly comic book that's essentially like, from my understanding, it seems like Marvel 2099, but mostly Walking Dead characters.
It centers around Rick Grimes and this new character,
Calamity or something?
Something like that, yeah. I always give, or we always give Robert Kirkman credit for shaking up the business and trying to give new blood to this bloated corpse of the comic book industry. So I think it's cool that he's doing it.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. It's actually like some of the comic books that we're covering today, where it's like, if it's an Elseworld, is it a first appearance? Is it a first costume? Is it like whatever? And I think, much like that comic we're covering today, in that comic it'll just be just for the readers, just people who enjoy Walking Dead and Skybound and stuff like that. But it seems really cool. The covers they released, I don't know if you saw the covers or scrolled through. They look insane. They look awesome.
Weekly is too often. No thanks from me.
Hard pass by Mike D.
Hard pass
That's
from
a no
me.
thank you from Mike D.
Whoa, okay.
Love Skybound. No thanks, dude. I read a handful of articles today, and there were a lot of like subreddits about comic book prices this week and how people were just getting priced out. How many $6 comics are in your shop?
Even the
week to week?
$4.99s were a little much, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're creeping the $4.99 into to be the new $3.99.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm seeing way more $7.99 comics that have, the backup story and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which we always talk about, like, I don't want that. I didn't ask for that.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm here for Batman, not whoever the fuck's in the back. But that's killing me. I don't know. Do you guys have a price that you draw the line at? That you're just like, no, not above this.
You know what is the problem? Is that I don't differentiate between $3.99 and $4.99.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, whatever, fine. You
Yeah.
know, and DC was right on their $1 more for their covers because I don't care. I'll buy either one.
Same.
But once it gets into like, if I see like $6.99, I'm like, what is this?
Over $5, it catches my eye. And I'm like,
better be worth it.
Yeah, do I really need this?
Yeah.
I can tell you for certain that I might give a $6 first issue a chance just to see if it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
If it's if it's like very good, let's put it in grading terms that comic book people can understand.
If it's a 9.8.
This is a very fine to very good comic. I'm not going to be buying subsequent issues at $6 a pop.
Right.
That's wild.
Do you know what is also insane to me? Is that the Comixology price is verbatim the same price.
Yeah, that's got to change. All right, let's get into some first issues.
Hell yeah. Finally. This is what everybody's here for.
Yeah.
They're so pissed about the Grimes talk right there.
There's a good chance it might be edited out.
Hey, that's okay.
If you don't know what we're talking about, there's a secret conversation that never made it your way. You guys want to start with Challenge of the Super Sons?
Oh, I would love to, yeah.
Yes.
Am I the only one who read this?
Number one cover of the week. I'll give it that.
Oh,
though.
it's a beautiful cover. This is the bee.
Beautiful.
Peter Tomasi, popular DC writers, written a ton of stuff for them. This is so kind of in the weeds of what is currently going on with Super Sons already. It pops like in and out of a timeline. Really hard to follow.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
What does Robin offer in this duo?
Damien?
Yeah, attitude.
Superman's tag team partner is like a guy who wears a cape.
Well, here's the thing. He's like brilliant.
Okay.
So he's solving the crimes and
Yeah.
has the know-how, and then Superboy gets him there really fast.
Okay.
And they're genuine friends. It's not more of like Superman wants to save the world. They just want to go on adventures together to better themselves and become the superheroes that they're supposed to be.
Cool. Damien is my favorite Robin.
Jonathan's just like a golden retriever. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he can blow your head off with his eye beams, but he's just so lovable that he's just kind of naive.
All right. So, side quest for Super Sons if you're a Super Sons fan.
Yeah. They get handed some scroll by some character who like really doesn't get introduced, and they have to save people. I don't know why, because their names appear on the scroll.
It's like the opposite of Death Note.
Yeah, right.
Instead of killing them, you have to save them.
Yeah.
Very confusing.
All right, let's go rapid fire. Next number one.
I think we're going to have more to say about this one. Spider-Man Shadow
Ooh, yeah.
by Chip Zdarsky, Pascal Ferry. In the very teensy corner, you may have noticed a new logo for What If Comics.
Little question mark.
I love that. Just in the vein of what we've been saying about the covers, this does get worst cover of the week, though.
Yeah.
Like, throw up worst.
Mm-hmm.
It's so blah. I'm like, what the hell? What happened here? Did you get Maynard from Tool to create your your cover? So Marvel's launching a new way to do What If.
Yeah, Chip Zdarsky kind of explains it in the back of this.
It's so awesome. They're letting these like What If stories breathe, which is what I always wanted in What If. Is like as a kid they're really fun because they're one-offs. They're actually one of the few comic books as a kid you can just collect and be like, I have the whole story. But here, if you're an adult, you want to see some of these stories grow, have some things happen, and these What If series are gonna have more length. And this is the famous What If Spider-Man was a bad guy by keeping the symbiote suit.
Which I loved. I love Chip Zdarsky, and we kind of saw this when he did Spider-Man Life Story, which is essentially just an extended version of what if Peter Parker's life went on a different trajectory. With this one, we get to see him keep the symbiote suit past Secret Wars 8 and how it kind of takes hold of him and affects his brain in a more sinister fashion. And I really think Chip has a strong grasp on who Peter Parker is and who Spider-Man is. Like, he has nailed the voice down almost pitch perfect.
This was a great comic, and I think it has the potential to change What Ifs forever. Like, the trajectory of this, because it had that whiff of What If where you're getting a little bit of like put him in all the situations that he kind of gets into so we could see how he's different, right?
Yeah.
So he's with Hobgoblin, he's with
Aunt May, Mary Jane,
Reed Richards, all that kind of stuff. But then it's like, oh, but there's a bigger story here that's gonna kind of dip its toes into what I think is like more horror in some ways.
Yeah. One of the things that I hate about some of the spin-offs is that it's just confusing as a consumer where they sit. Like when J.J. Abrams did what's technically considered Volume 4 of Spider-Man.
Right.
And he just like made up a new scenario, killed Mary Jane.
His son was also writing with him, right?
Yeah, J.J. Abrams' son's writing with him. Peter Parker has a son and has lost an arm in this book. And everyone's like, where does this sit in the timeline? It's just made up. Like, put a What If in the corner of these. It doesn't have to be an ongoing series. Just let me know that this is a fun Elseworld thing.
So let me know I can forget this.
So let me ask you this then. Where does like all things action Spider-Man fit then?
Nonstop Spider-Man?
There we go, yeah.
I think that can realistically live alongside Mainline.
Yep.
And just say, this happened a year ago, or this happens a year in the future.
Because
it's not so far out of concept, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think these are like throwaway things that we can just like forget about either in these What If comics. I think they're like you said, they're worth exploring. Maybe people do look at the What If in the corner and say, I don't need to read this.
I think the What If's so innocuous that you just see new Spider-Man run and you go for it.
Right.
And then you're like, wait a minute, this is a What If? I read a commentary on this that said like this was so good that they could see some of this seeding into Mainline.
Ooh, that'd be a bad idea. That would be a bad idea.
So, yeah, I agree with that. That would be a bad idea, but I don't disagree with that it was that good.
I love the situation that gets posed at the peak of this story. That's like, okay, we've gone back to when Spider-Man had his black suit. He was battling with evil, and he won that battle, right? In this book, Aunt May gets attacked. And I'm like, hell, if this happened to actual Peter Parker in real line of Marvel Comics, he might have actually snapped like this.
Mm-hmm.
He might have that might have been the thing that drove him to kill somebody, which this book ends with Peter murdering Hobgoblin.
I think he just smashed his skull.
Right.
It was rad.
He's hanging up just gooping blood and flesh from his face at the end of this.
Batman needs to hang out with Spider Shadow a little more.
New Spider.
And I thought the scene you described was the most haunting because Peter wanted to save Aunt May.
Yeah.
But the Venom suit
kept him from doing it.
Wouldn't let him go any further because the fire would kill the symbiote.
Fire bad.
And so you essentially just had to watch Peter watch Aunt May die, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah. The stakes are high for a comic book that won't matter, that can't matter in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what a What If should do. So
Yeah.
Chip nailed it. Chip should keep on just writing this. I hope they give him the whole tenure of What If. Just make him the What If editor.
Editor, fine, but I want to hear some new voices in here as well.
The czar of What If.
There we go.
Yeah. What If czar.
Perfect. You've been anointed.
You've been crowned.
Sir What If? He could be knighted.
Would you guys read a comic of just Peter Parker chatting with Aunt May? He never gets in the suit. They're just catching up.
Yeah.
Eating coffee
Totally.
cake and drinking coffee.
Yeah. Talking to ants.
Spiders and ants.
Yeah, spiders and ants, yeah. Next up.
Batman the Detective.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're talking Tom Taylor.
I think we all talked before this episode started, and we looked at this book, and we all came to the agreement that this book had no business being as good as it was.
Yep.
And we were all pretty shocked by it.
Oh, fucking rules. It reminded me of an episode of Sherlock.
I did not want to read this comic book, and I liked it so much.
It just kind of speaks to a writer can really change how a book flows and goes. And you're absolutely right. Can I do a little Dr. Seuss rhyming? Come on. I mean, you're right. It did feel like a Sherlock episode because he was actually being a detective. And it was less about, the violence and more about Batman, the thinking.
Which I think is a lot of what people actually like about Batman.
Yeah,
totally.
Right.
And then it's also a almost Frank Miller Batman. He's huge. He's ripped to shreds, kind of.
It's a Cubert.
Oh, yeah. And, he's just, looking good. But I think he's, 50-ish.
Yeah, this is an older
And
Batman.
so he's always pulling the whole No Country thing where he's like, I'm old. I'm a little slower than I used to be. My shits take a little longer than they did before. My coffee comes straight out my penis before when it would sit around.
Okay.
Oh man, I'm really sorry you ran out of steam.
I could have sat back and listened to about another hour of that.
That was great.
I know what it's like to be old.
All right, let me spoil the core concept of this. Group of criminals. They get a bunch of people on a plane together, and then they crash that plane. We find out what everyone on the plane had in common was that Batman had saved their lives at one point. Earlier in the book, he has a bit of an existential crisis or a crisis of faith in his role as Batman because he says, what greater good have I done for the world or this city or for my loved ones? Nothing. I've ruined a bunch of lives. The only people I've helped are one-off people whose lives I've saved or impacted. I have no other lasting legacy. And then people are going after that one shred of something he has to feel good about being Batman.
They're calling it equilibrium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They're balancing him out.
It's so fucked up. I was like, oh, boy.
And they're all
dark.
They're dressing up like Batman as they're doing it.
Yeah, they have white Batman outfits just to be his
yin and yang.
Total opposite. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's great. The one thing I did not understand about this book is that at one point in time he fights a ghost.
Gentleman ghost.
And
Yes.
beats him up with some gloves that Constantine gave him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, why did that happen?
Just go with it, man.
It set a little bit of a weirder, funny vibe that the rest of the comic didn't have.
It gave him a cheeky moment later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was maybe to show that he is softening in his old age. that he can like joke about himself.
Yeah.
Because that was so not a Batman moment.
Yeah.
It was odd.
That someone called him out for trying to impress someone.
Squire.
Yeah, Squire calls him out for trying to impress someone, and he's like, I did punch a ghost.
I punched a
That
ghost.
was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is how Batman should be when there's when you're not having to deal with all the elements of Gotham and Arkham and all of that kind of stuff. So
This is a great Batman spinoff.
unfettered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I love that it's not set in Gotham, like you just said. Like he's out of his element, and which I love.
Yeah, he did. One thing that got me was like he leaves his mansion and he's like, "I'm leaving forever," and I'm like, "Well, I mean,
Okay, Batman.
you're only leaving for 6 issues."
All right, Bruce.
For this comic, like it's not really forever.
You do this at least once a year.
Yeah,
We get it.
we'll go back to your giant penny and your dinosaur.
They made kind of a deal about him going on to a different phase in his life.
Yeah, when I'm 50, I will also walk away from my home and say goodbye forever.
It's called downsizing.
Yeah.
A lot of seniors do it.
Yeah.
Batman's got to do it too at some point.
What's up? What's next on the dock? I love this format's great. Just this rapid
it?
fire number
We're
ones.
moving. Home on Image Comics.
Home is essentially a YA graphic novel that is it's like a Newsweek for kids. It is the news story of coming over the border and the terrible horrors that would have happened during the Trump administration. And frankly, to be quite honest, although wherever you lay on the political spectrum, are still happening during the Biden administration.
Right.
But it's a pretty much what I understood to be a verbatim story of
There's pull quotes from news outlets in this.
And I don't mean this as a slight, but when I was like, I don't even know, in my teens or something like that, I bought a graphic novel of the 9/11 report because I felt like it would be a better way to read something I should just know about. If you are interested in the story of that, Home might be a good way to graphic novelize that what's happening there with a little bit of fantastical stuff that happens.
Right. There is a twist where the one of the main characters has some fantastical powers that I assume are going to find out more as the story continues. This is like I think one
it's
of four, one of five.
1 of 5.
This book is haunting for a lot of reasons, and one of them is this is a very real situation that is happening in our country. So it's a bit of a heavy book with some promise for a lighter ending, I'll say.
Yeah, it doesn't look super heavy. Given the logo has barbed wire in it, that's pretty intimidating. But the art style is like very fun, friendly. Looks like it was made for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect the fantasy side ending, and I didn't expect such a literal piece by piece walkthrough of like the crisis at the border. I had no expectations for it, and it still subverted those no expectations.
I will say this: if you have parents, we'll call them boomers, who don't know what crossing the border illegally and seeking asylum mean, and that they are two different things, give them this book.
Right. That's
Because
actually a great...
It brilliantly tells you what are the differences.
Yeah.
And I was even enlightened on some things that I didn't know. And so if you have any family member that is always berating you at Thanksgiving saying, well, these people are coming here illegally, well, they're actually not.
And the other thing about this comic is I remember hearing an interview about one of these detention centers from somebody that quit because they were asked to do things they were uncomfortable with. And it seems like this is their exact story.
It sounds like the whole job's pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
This is fucked up.
What's next?
Cullen Bunn and Mark Torres's Phantom on the Scan.
Phantom on the Scan.
Phantom on the Scan.
Appropriate soundtrack, because this book was trippy.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys read it?
I haven't read it yet, but we're giant Cullen Bunn fans. He's been on the show. I would say maybe he's a friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
We'll say that. If you've guessed it on the show, you're a friend of the show.
Oh yeah, big friend of the show. I deep dove into the cover.
Oh, you've got some like
you got some hot takes on the
hot
art.
takes on. I deep dove on the cover. What nuances did you find?
How many articles are about the front cover of this book?
Yeah, we haven't got that's an untapped thing I might get into.
For a reason.
Yeah, some of the elements you might see on this cover right here is well, it looks as if Keanu Reeves is on the cover.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, the word scan is in it, and it seems to be cyberpunk, reminiscent of A Scanner Darkly, one of the most famous cyberpunk movies ever to exist. And the arc of the story is also on the cover, not often a move that people do.
The night the comet fell.
There we go. What's this comic about, though? Is it cyberpunk?
Is there a comet?
There's a comet in the background. You can maybe try to attribute something to it by the time you've read the entire comic, but maybe not. It's not a huge part of the story. This is essentially about a guy who talks to who I believe to be his deceased son or the ghost of his deceased son or deceased child that's not related to him. Unclear to me at this point in time. But he goes to a psychiatrist and finds out that the psychiatrist has ulterior motives and has been seeing and speaking with several people who are psychic, have psychic abilities. She's trying to convince them they're not special, they're delusional, etc. And then all these people end up finding each other through their psychic link. Something is killing the psychic people one by one, though, and we don't know what it is yet.
So this is something is killing the children for psychics.
I think what you just did there was he said something is, and then your brain finished it with killing the children.
Yeah, this is like X-Men for psychics, or maybe you could say The Watchmen, but with psychics.
Yeah.
Or Silver Surfer with psychics.
With The Walking Dead?
With psychics, right.
Instead of zombies.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a comet.
The zombies are psychic.
Yes.
So I don't know if
That's why they're always eating brains.
If this comet landed or passed over and it gave these people psychic powers or gifts or whatever, that might be the only thing with the comet.
This was a sleeper comic, but your premise really sold it to me.
Oh, it was great.
Was it?
And it's haunting, creepy, very Cullen Bunn.
Aftershock, as we often talk about, is like 50-50. On their books are either could be great or just like wah wah. And this seems to be a good one.
Yeah, I've been waiting for another Cullen Bunn book to hit me the way Bone Parish did, and I think this is going to be that book.
Wow.
Bone Parish I stuck with for whatever the run was, 12 issues or so.
That's like drugs of dead bodies or something like that?
Yeah, you
crush up the bones.
Yeah.
You smoke the skull.
You snort it.
You snort dead people, and then you get to hallucinate living as them.
Yeah.
Is the concept of that book.
And
so good.
Like bones of rock stars and famous people were being stolen and people were taking them.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm glad this book is good.
It's called Doing Death.
I will definitely.
It's so good. I know there's a lot of things that I tried to describe that are very unclear here, but just the mysteries of the haunting scene that's been set up. That just kind of throws you into a situation, and then you pick up the pieces just by knowing enough and taking, Cullen Bunn's word for it. That
Cullen usually does that in the first issue. He makes it really murky, but you're just like, I want to keep going here. You have just made it enticing enough where I am in it. I am in it. I'm ready for this, Cullen.
Leave you wanting more, baby.
Phantom of the Scan.
Last book.
Oh.
Locust.
The Locust.
Season of Sex.
Best Scout book I've ever read.
Oh. Whoa. Wow. Scout, take that.
Yep.
So you're telling me Stabbity Rabbit,
Murder Hobo,
Gut Ghost, Loggerhead,
the list goes on.
By the Horns.
Yeah.
But was By the Horns Scout?
By the Horns is great.
Yeah, By the Horns is Scout.
Can you, as we all kind of share similar musical upbringings of the same era,
Oh, God.
do you see the name of this comic book and not think of the Locust the band?
I do think of the Locust the band
every
time I
hear
that.
time, yeah.
I also thought of Brood X.
Okay.
Which is the coolest name for a coming storm of cicadas.
And this is
You're absolutely right.
I think the timing of this is great because there was tons of news articles hitting this week on locusts and cicadas and stuff like
about
that.
how they're coming.
Yeah.
It's the summer.
Over the year.
Yep,
This is the
2021.
The 17-year brood.
And so this is obviously about a plague.
Yes.
I was going to say, are locusts in this book?
Kind of.
Excellent.
Okay. What makes this just like elevator pitch us? Why is this the best scout book ever? Because that's a bold. We've covered a shit ton of scout books.
1, look at this cover.
Okay, apocalyptic, you have me.
Fucking great. Doesn't look like someone's learning to draw
half-assed
while they're working through this.
Yeah.
Like, this is someone
We're
with
looking at you, murder hobo.
an established style that can draw characters consistently page to page, like color panels and scenes well and cohesively, and set up a great visual story, right? When it flashes from past to present, which is a great device it uses to tell the story, it goes from this like sparsity of present day post-apocalyptic back to like the hours prior to the apocalypse essentially coming. And that narrative switch is done beautifully. They vibe completely differently. You can tell when we've gone back in time and forward in time. Like something that a lot of, I think, independent comics you take for granted as a creator, that people understand the story that's in your head. Like it makes so much sense to you, and then you don't put yourself in the reader's shoes and say like, oh, well, if I don't know this already about the thing I'm telling, like, does it make sense? Like this seemed like it could have been a Skybound book to me.
Wow.
Again, really sparse, dialogue written really well, heavier dialogue in like the before times, which makes sense because there's more people to interact with, right? And then it's kind of a monster alien story.
Cool.
But it's not heavy-handed or corny with it. When I read the synopsis of it and kind of got a taste for what this was going to be, I was like, it's going to be typical, over-the-top, in-your-face, goofball alien story. And it was nuanced, quiet, driving, a lot of good words.
I think it was supposed to have come out last week.
Is that right?
And then something happened or whatever. But so I'm glad we're covering it because it got a little bit of underplay.
All right, I think that does it. I'll end my soliloquy on Locust to send you off into your dreamscape.
Man, we did a lot of number ones. Number ones is where the industry's at, and number ones is what we cover.
There's a six-pack of them
I can make
today.
one bold guarantee about this episode. You will not hear another episode this week that covered more number ones.
Oh, you never hear another episode.
Guarantee
that
it.
More ones.
And that's why you come here. That's why you come to the First Issue Club.
Yep.
To get this kind of content.
In under an hour, mind you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we don't take much of your time.
No.
We are in and out.
We're in and out.
We hit you with the good stuff, leave you with a smile, and then we'll see you in a week.
We're the fast food of comic books if fast food served you lettuce wraps.
Yep, we're, what you call it, Jimmy John's. Except we don't hunt animals.
We're so fast you flip. Free smells.
We're like your favorite kind of sex, getting it over with.
Yep.
Getting to the fun part and being done.
We're like having sex with us. We're good for 2 minutes tops.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll hold you afterwards.
If you'd like that.
Yeah, well, I would assume. We wouldn't do that if we weren't asked to do it.
Yes, yeah. Sex with us, it's not bad.
Signing off.